Hello, Cherie Louise Turner here. I'm the host and producer of Women's Running Stories, and I love a good night's sleep. I know it helps with my recovery, and it helps me to have great energy all day long. And the people at Lagoon know this too, and that is why they make terrific pillows. And they are offering listeners of Women's Running Stories 15% off on your first purchase. Just go to lagoonsleep.com and use the code WRS15 at checkout for 15% off your first purchase. Before you order, you're going to take a short sleep quiz to find out which of their pillows is best for you. I sleep on the Fox, and I love the fact that these pillows come with extra fill so you can add or remove fill as you like, making your pillow customizable. My Lagoon pillow is soft and it's comfortable and it has a nice weight to it. Of course, Lagoon makes their pillows with quality materials so you know they will last. Go on over to lagoonsleep.com and find the pillow that's right for you. That's lagoonsleep.com. Use the promo code WRS15 at checkout for 15% off your first purchase. All right, now on to the episode. Hello and welcome to Women's Running Stories, where exceptional women runners share inspirational stories about their running experiences. I am Cherie Louise Turner. I'm the host and producer of this podcast. Thank you so much for being here. I always appreciate you listening. And not only am I the host and producer of Women's Running Stories, I am also a runner. And I embarked on a project a little over a year ago to break 20 minutes in the 5K in my 50s. I've called it the Over 50 Sub 25K project. And every couple months, I pop in to give an update. So this is one of those updates. This is chapter 7 of this series. And if you haven't listened to the previous 6 episodes, you don't need to be able to follow along here. But of course, you will get a lot more context about this project. And I talk about all the things I've learned. And there's been a lot. There's been a lot of change over the last year. And I will say that is one thing that is particularly satisfying about this project is I've been tracking it so closely, much more closely than I have tracked performance for a long time. And I've been tracking it in many different ways, not just my training and speed and the physical part of it, but every part of this project where I am making some effort, be it mental training or form training or whatever it might be. I've been tracking all those things more closely. And as I pay attention to them, it's really nice to see change over time. It's really satisfying to see what can happen in just over a year. So yeah, go ahead and go back and listen to those episodes. You can even do it after you listen to this episode, and there will be links in the show notes to all the ways you can do that. And I will also include the dates that all those previous episodes in the series were published, so you can find them easily in the feed if you just want to scroll back and find them yourself. So a quick recap here to get you up to speed. Going back to the very beginning of this project, it did start after I ran the Comrades Marathon. This is the 56-mile hilly road race that happens every year in South Africa. It is the oldest and largest ultramarathon in the world. And I ran that in June of 2023. And after that, I closed the chapter on racing longer distances, marathons and ultras, in order to focus on this project, the Over 50 Sub 25K project. So I took a break after I finished Comrades, and then I got back to training about 3 or 4 weeks later, and this project really kicked off. So in more recent times, in June of 2024, just a few months ago, I set a new 5K PB. By my watch, I ran 20 minutes and 58 seconds. By the official race clock, I ran 21 minutes and 1 second. Whatever the case, it was a PB and it was a magical day. It was a fantastic race. I felt amazing. And also, with that done, I was ready for a break from racing. So then I took 6 weeks off of racing and just stuck with training. I was really enjoying the training. I was a bit burnt out on racing. And I was also a bit burnt out on racing the 5K. I love that distance, but doing it over and over and over again was starting to feel a bit stale. And so I wanted to change things up. So where I left you off last time is that I was going to get back to racing. I had put some races on the calendar that were slightly longer than a 5K. I had a 4-miler, a 5-miler, and a 10K on the calendar. And my reason for this was a couple things. One was to change things up. And then the other thing is that I know a weak spot for me is holding a difficult pace for a longer period of time. I'd gotten used to being able to hold a hard pace for 5 kilometers, but anything longer than that, and I could feel myself struggle a bit, mostly mentally. So I wanted to improve that skill of being able to hang with a pace for a bit longer. And I can say in retrospect that I have improved, but it was a bit of a bumpy road. Like, I was right about the fact that I'm very challenged by staying in the effort for a longer period of time. And so that's where I left you off in the last episode. I had run a PB in the 5K, and then I took 6 weeks off of racing with the plan to do these longer races after that 6-week break. So let's get into what has happened since I last left you off. This episode spans the period from July 23rd to October 7th. And there are 2 main things that define this period. One is this longer racing, and the other one is moving. I relocated from Ireland to the US, and not surprisingly, that did have an impact on my running and racing, and I will get to all of that. Navigating life is just a part of this whole process. And I did at one point think I was just going to skate through and be able to train nonstop while I went through this overseas move. And that did not end up being the case. So yeah, I will get to all of that. All right, so let's get into this update. Going back to the end of July, where I last left you off, I had these 3 races lined up: the 4-miler, the 5-miler, and the 10K. 1 a week for 3 weeks. The 4-miler I was really looking forward to. I had run it the year before. It's a really fun event. And one of the things that was nice is that I knew the course and I had something to measure my effort against. I had the time that I had set the year before. So of course this year I was hoping to better that time, and I wanted to run smarter. I got to carpool out to this race with Cormac O'Regan. Cormac has made loads of the music for this podcast, and he's also a good friend. He's a running buddy. Anyway, we carpooled out there together, and we had a chat about how we were going to approach the race, and we decided that we were committed to running a negative split. This means that you run the second half faster than you run the first half, and it's a little tricky on this course because this course starts with a big downhill. About the first mile of this race is mostly downhill, and then it gets pretty hilly in the middle 2 miles, and then it is a sort of sloping downhill to the finish. And what I had done the year before, I remember it very clearly, is I screamed on the downhill, and I had a lot of fun, and then I struggled in the later miles of the race, and it was really tough coming into the finish. I do also think in these circumstances about Amelia Benton. I've had Amelia on the podcast, and one of the things that she talked a lot about in her story was how much she loves to negative split a race. And one of the reasons that she really likes this is because you have energy at the end of the race and you can really give your all coming in to the finish. So she really emphasizes how it's just a much more pleasant way of racing, and oftentimes you run faster overall. So I was very committed to this negative split strategy, and I knew it would be a challenge on this course because of this opening mile downhill. I knew I would really have to rein it in. And I will say it was a total success. I had a great race. I ran faster than I had the year before. I felt better. I held back on the downhill. I had enough to get through the hills. I could really give my all in the end. It was terrific. All goals were met. I was very happy coming away from that race. Now, coming into the next week, I had this 5-miler. This is also a course that was hilly. The first portion of it is a lot of downhill. There's a big, steep downhill in the first few miles. and then it flattens out almost all the way to the end, and then there's this little kicker of a hill that you have to come up and over to the finish line that proved to be it felt brutal. And part of the reason for that was that even though I feel like I paced that race pretty well, it did stretch my ability to just hold on to a hard effort for a long time. Coming in to the final mile of this 5-mile race, I was really having a battle in my mind. It felt super long. I really just wanted the finish line to be there. I started to wonder why I had signed myself up for these longer races, while at the same time fully recognizing that this was why I had signed up for these longer races, because I am challenged to stay with the effort for a longer period of time. So in my mind, I was having this little battle of being totally over it and also realizing that this is where I needed to really learn how to focus and stay with the effort. And I did give it my all. But I will also admit to the fact that I wasn't totally satisfied with that performance. It just didn't feel great. I didn't feel good about how I treated myself in my mind. Of course, it hurt physically. I mean, races are about pushing yourself. And I definitely did that, but I could have been a little nicer to myself along the way, and I really could have enjoyed myself more along the way. So this is where I need to continue to do some more work. And I had the opportunity to test that out once again the next weekend racing this 10K that I had on the calendar. And coming into that race, there were a couple of things going on. One is it had been billed as a PR course, a great place to set your PRs. And I thought, well, that's what I'm going to try to do then. I'm going to go after a PR. And my PR in the 10K is 45 minutes. So that's what I had my sights set on, is to come in under 45 minutes. And I felt like that was really doable. Now, here's the thing. Race day, it was gray, it was rainy, it was windy. But I put all that out of my head and I came to the line with optimism. I will also add that I wasn't feeling particularly great that week. I was feeling a bit tired. My legs were not feeling all that peppy. But nonetheless, I know that there are lots of times when I've come up to the line and I think that, I don't know how my body's going to feel. And then I go into race mode and everything is great. So I don't put a lot of value on how I feel immediately coming to the start line, because there is that switch that gets flipped when I go into race mode. So I was relying on that and ready to go. But about 2 miles into this race, I realized that I wasn't feeling great. I was really struggling to hold a pace that would get me close to this PR. And then the hills came, and I was just thinking, this doesn't seem like a PR course to me at all. But I also don't like to make excuses, especially mid-race, so I just carried on. But it was clear that this wasn't going to be a PB day, whatever the reason, be it the course, me being tired, the weather. I just was not hitting the paces I needed to be hitting to run a personal best. So I regrouped and I reframed my situation, and I just thought, I am going to have fun and I'm going to get the most out of myself that I possibly can. And I decided to smile as much as I possibly could. I focused on having a great smile and really just digging into this idea of enjoying myself, even though I was really not feeling that great. And I was kind of bummed that I wasn't going to meet this goal, but I also knew that there were lots of photographers on the course. And so I figured, well, at least I'll get some good photos out of this. So I kept a smile on my face and I carried on. I did the very best I could, but I also found myself going into the same sort of frustrated state that I had been in the week before about kind of being over it before I had hit the finish line, and really going back and forth in my mind about wanting the finish line to appear immediately, but then also realizing that it wasn't going to appear immediately and I needed to stay with the effort. Yeah, it was a bit of a back and forth struggle in my mind. It felt chaotic. It didn't feel great once again. And it was also another good reminder that these are good races for me to do in order to stretch this capacity in my mind. Because most of all of this struggle that I have is mental. Of course, physically, it's very challenging, but it is the mental part that is the biggest challenge for me. So I finished off. I was a few minutes off this PR, so not close at all. And because of that, I was frustrated. But here's the other thing that I will say about both of these races is I got second in my age category in each one of them, the 5-miler and the 10K. And in the 5-miler, I was only 6 seconds off the win. That was a little frustrating to figure out. afterward. And now I point these results out because from the outside, these races looked like a success. If you're looking at it from a competitive standpoint, getting second against the people you're competing against in a race is great. And yet, when I finished each one of these races, I did not feel great. I felt frustrated, and I felt like I hadn't done as well as I had wanted to do. And that comes from a couple of things. One, in that 5-miler, I didn't have a clear goal. I wanted to pace well, and really what that meant was not going out too fast in the beginning part, which had all of the downhill. But beyond that, I didn't have a super clear idea of what would feel like a good race to me. I don't have a ton of experience with 5-milers. I was also factoring in the course. It's not flat, so how do you gauge that even against the 5-milers that I've run in the past? Anyway, there was no clear sense of what I was really trying to do other than pace it well and do my best all the way to the end. And I did those things, but I found myself being frustrated that I wasn't running faster in sort of those flat miles that came after the downhill coming into the finish, and that I really struggled in that last mile. But part of what I struggled with is I felt like I should be running faster than I was running, but why? Like, I was still going well. I was still racing hard. I was giving my all, and yet somehow I was feeling like I wasn't living up to some nebulous expectation that I had for myself. And that is something I need to work on. I need to work on ways to feel satisfied with my effort in the moment when I actually am giving everything and I'm running well. In the end, I did figure out that this was a 5-mile PB for me. So I should have been totally thrilled in the moment, immediately after the race, and I wasn't. And the same goes for the 10K. Now, the 10K, I had a little bit more of a clear goal. I wanted to set a new PB, but when I realized in the race that this wasn't going to happen, I should have had some other really satisfying goals to go after, because in the end, I actually did race a good race. Just because it wasn't a PB didn't mean I hadn't given my all. Like, maybe my legs were a little tired, but the course was tough and the conditions were not ideal. So I should have had some other goals to go after so I could have felt energized and excited about the performance that I was having, even if I wasn't meeting this original goal that I'd had. In other words, I should have had A, B, and C goals, and I should have been very satisfied readjusting in the moment and running those hills as hard as I could and having something to go after during the race that could have kept me energized and motivated and not feeling like I was failing, because the fact was I wasn't failing. I was running really well. I was giving a good performance and I was giving it everything I had in the moment, and yet I was still conflicted with these feelings of not giving enough. So anyway, it did make me think a lot about how I set my goals, how I set my expectations, and having some ways of, in the moment, being able to feel excited about what is happening when I am actually running the race that is in front of me well. I will also add here that there's a bit of a funny twist that happened within a couple of days after finishing the 10K. So when I was coming into the finish of this 10K, I was like, thank goodness this little experiment is over for these longer races. I'll digest what I've learned over the past 3 weeks and take that with me, but thank goodness I'm just going to stick to some shorter races. So that was what I was feeling coming into the finish line. Within a couple of days, I sort of thought, I kind of like that 10K distance. Maybe I'll try another one. And as it would turn out, I would get the opportunity to do that in pretty short order. But before I get to that, I will get to the next thing that happened, and that is this transatlantic move, moving from Cork, Ireland, back to Boston, Massachusetts. which did catch up with my training and racing. So after the 10K, and after I did digest the fact that I had had a good race, regardless of the time, I had come in second, I'd given my all, and in the end, I did sort of enjoy running this 10K distance and was open to the possibility of running it again. But moving on from that, it was back to training, and even though I had these hopes that this move would not have a huge impact on my training and racing, I knew it was going to have some impact. So I wasn't putting any other races firmly on the calendar because I wasn't really quite sure how things were going to go. And I did continue training, and it was going well until it wasn't. Less than a week before the move, there was a 5K. It was very close to my house. I've run it in the past, and I thought, maybe I can just shake off all this stress and just give a big blast of an effort and maybe PB at this race. And my good friend Kieran was running, and so I thought, just one last race with my dear friend Kieran. And I went out, I did the race, I had high hopes of running really well, and you know what? I was just tired. I was exhausted. I gave a good effort. I ran well. I did not PB. And after I crossed the finish line, I realized I need a rest. I need to address this move. I was emotionally getting very tapped out. I was physically also getting really tired. And, I was just sad. I was really sad to be moving away from Ireland. I love it there. I love my friends there. I love so many things about living in that country. And I was just really having a hard time facing just the fact that I was really, really sad to be moving away. So that all started to catch up with me. And I was also experiencing the really, really daunting stress of packing everything up, cleaning a house, getting ready to move, finding an apartment, and getting all the details ready to go from one place to another, driving to the airport, getting on a plane. And there's not a lot of wiggle room when you need to have everything in a very finite amount of space and get on an airplane and go to a new place. And at the same time as all of these stressful and very sad things were going on, I was also really excited to come back to Boston. I have a lot of friends here that I love. And there are a lot of things about this area that I was really looking forward to returning to. So it was very split. I was very torn. There was a lot going on, and I just needed to address it. So after this 5K race where I realized, you know what, this is enough, I wrote to my coach and I said, look, I have got to take a step away from structured training and focus on this move. It has really caught up with me. And of course, she said, of course it has. And yes, you need to take a break. So I did. I stepped away from structured training and I decided I'm just going to do whatever running feels good and sort of supports me and feels healthy, as opposed to trying to bang away at actually having structured training and make this a priority, because my priority needed to be somewhere else. So I refocused. The move went as smoothly as it possibly could. And even so, it was, moving sucks. And it sucked the way that moving does, even when everything goes well. And in the running and racing realm, I took 2 weeks off of structured training. But one thing that was really nice to recognize is that I really love to run. So even though I didn't have structured training, I found myself wanting to go out on runs. I looked to running as stress relief. I ran as easy or as hard or as long or as short as I wanted to. I set out on several runs with no set intentions, and I did some nice group runs. I returned to the Tracksmith community runs that I really love, saw lots of familiar faces. I got to reunite with lots of friends, and I was looking forward to running on the Tracksmith Boston Hares team that I am still a member of. And it just so turned out that a couple weeks after my move, there was the last race in the US ATF Road Circuit Series for New England, and it was a 10K. And I thought, a 10K, I can do that. It'll be a great return to racing. It's the last race of the season for this road series. It'll be a fun way to reunite with my teammates. I will go in with no expectations, and I was very serious about this. I knew it was a hilly course, so I absolutely knew it wasn't going to be a PB course, and I was just going to use it as an opportunity to get my legs going again after all of the chaos and stress and exhaustion of moving. So I set my focus on that. So for a bit of a timeline here, I moved over Labor Day weekend. I took a couple of weeks to do whatever running or other types of training that I felt like. Then I returned to training, and at the end of the first week of this return to training was this Lone Goal 10K. That race was on September 22nd, and just before that, I had my birthday, and I entered a new race age category, 55 to 59. So yeah, I was just looking to have some fun, reunite with teammates, run as well as I could, and shake off the fatigue and the stress of moving, and just have a nice reset and get back to racing. And that is exactly what I did. On this course, the first couple of miles felt terrific. I felt amazing. It was wonderful. It was also a good amount of downhill. We had a tailwind. It was along the coast. Absolutely beautiful. And then I remember turning a corner, I think it was somewhere about mile 3, and you're running into a headwind going uphill. So it got pretty tough after that, and it flattened out toward the end, but I still remember there being a decent amount of wind, and it was really tough coming into the finish. But in the end, I feel like I ran well, and because I really didn't put any pressure or expectation on myself, I just wanted to give a good effort and pace the best that I could, which, I did. I stayed with the effort. I was pretty good about staying with the effort all the way to the end. And as it turns out, I ran faster than the 10K I had just done in Ireland. And the conditions were pretty similar wind-wise. And I think the course in Massachusetts was actually a little bit harder. So all in all, I was really satisfied and I had a lot of fun. I mean, it was really tough, but I was really happy to be healthy and be running pain-free and to be able to turn out a good performance, especially on the heels of this move. I mean, it was really satisfying. I felt like it was exactly the restart that I was looking for. And then I got to spend the day with my teammates. We had a ton of fun. We jumped in the ocean, which is something I always love to do. So yeah, it was just a great return to racing in the area and a good kickstart to my mind and my body to get back to it. And in the couple of weeks since then, training has been going good. I am settling into a routine. In addition to getting back to regular training, I have also been returning to yoga, which is really nice. I am back in a gym, which means I'm lifting weights that are a little bit heavier than I'd been lifting while I was living in Ireland, because when I was in Ireland, I was just using some weights that we had at home, and there was nothing that was particularly heavy. I've also been commuting here and there on bikes. I signed up for the Blue Bikes here. They're the borrow bike service that they have here in Boston, so I've been riding a bike around a lot more. So my body is just readjusting to these changes of activities. And between that and the move, while my training has been consistent, I have not felt consistent. I've felt a little up and down. Some days I feel really good. Other days I feel like I am moving through mud. The speed is not quite back yet, and I have been a little frustrated by it. I'm sure I will bounce back, but in the meantime, I've been trying to hit some paces and they feel way harder than I think that they should. I've been expecting to be able to run faster. Expectations seem to be a big theme this episode. So I have readjusted my expectations, and I actually ended up having a really nice park run just this last weekend because I realized that I was getting frustrated with this build back and that I really just needed to sort of get with reality and start with where I was and find a way to make a successful outing of this park run over the weekend. So I decided to make it a progression run and try and shoot for a PR on this course. This is my new home course. It's the Dennehy Park Run in Cambridge, Massachusetts. And it's not a particularly fast course, and I haven't run it too many times. So when I looked at my PR, I thought, that'll be something that I could probably achieve pretty readily. And you know what? I did. It was very satisfying. The first mile I went out pretty conservatively. The second mile I picked it up. And the third mile, I was able to pick it up quite a bit more than I even expected. So that was really nice, and it taught me the very important lesson of work with where you're at, because I came away from that feeling really good. And I have been a little frustrated by not being able to hit paces that I was hitting pretty readily a couple months ago. So now I've readjusted, and I'm excited to build back from here. And one big thing that will be part of this build back, which came unexpectedly, but I decided to take the opportunity when it arose, is that I am taking a trip out to California. And it just so happens that there is a track race that is happening where I will be on one of the days when I'm there. And I learned about it through Sue McDonald. I've had Sue on the podcast before. Sue is a phenomenal runner. She is a 9-time age group world record holder for a variety of events on the track. And she had posted about this meet, and I realized, it's coming up kind of fast. And I emailed her about it, and she encouraged me to sign up because she was pretty sure there was a 5,000 meter, which there is. So I talked to my coach Verity, and I was like, I know this is coming up a bit quick, but should I just go for it? And we both agreed, why not? So I'm going to go for it. I signed up. It is coming up at the end of October. So I have that I'm looking forward to. I also, just before I go out to California, sort of on my way out there, I suppose you could say, I am going to be at the Chicago Marathon. I am co-hosting a live podcast event at the Chicago Marathon Expo on the main stage on Saturday at 4 o'clock. Please come join us if you are in the Chicago area over marathon weekend. I will be joining my co-host, Cindy Kuzma of the Starting Line 1928 podcast, and we will be in conversation with the 4 members of the Native Women Run team who will be running the Chicago Marathon. And we will also be joined by founder Verna Volker, and it is going to be a great conversation. I am really, really looking forward to this. So please come join us. Again, that is on Saturday, October 12th from 4 to 5 p.m. on the main stage at the Chicago Marathon Expo. It is free and open to the public. And that does bring me to the end of this update, filled with longer races, a big move, and looking forward to hosting an event at the Chicago Marathon and also running this 5,000 meter at the end of October in Santa Barbara, California, where I do actually get to cheer on Sue McDonald and all the other runners there at this meet. I am really looking forward to this. I will set my A, B, and C goals, and I will be prepared to give my all, and I will also be prepared to be satisfied with the effort that I give on the day. So that is a big goal for this race. Thank you so much for listening. I always appreciate you coming on this journey with me. This one, of course, is especially dear to my heart because it's what I spend a lot of my time doing. So I really appreciate you being here. I've gotten encouragement from several listeners, and I really appreciate it. It really does fuel and motivate me to keep after this. So thank you for listening. Thank you for your encouragement. If you are new to this series, look to the show notes, and I will provide those links and the publication dates of the previous episodes so you can go back and get caught up. I will be back in another couple months to give the next update, which of course will include how things went down in the 5,000 meter. And you can also keep up with me in between on Instagram. I do weekly updates on the Instagram feed that is dedicated to this project. It is over 50 sub 20 _ 5K _ project. All right, that is going to do it for me. I am Cherie Louise Turner. I am a runner, and I am the host and producer of Women's Running Stories. And until next Tuesday, I do wish you healthy, joyful strides forward. Women's running. Women's running stories.
There is no hood like parenthood. When you meet a fellow parent, you just kind of get each other on a whole nother level. Hi, I'm Kanika Chadda Gupta. I'm a former CNN journalist, mom of 3, including twins, and host of That's Total Mom Sense, the podcast. I interview changemakers on their life lessons, legacy, and superpower of intuition, aka their mom sense and dad sense. I've had some pretty amazing parents on my show.
Hey, what's up? I'm Kelly Rowland.
Hi, this is Chelsea Clinton.
It's me, Bobby Brown. Can't wait to share my story.
Episodes release every Thursday. Subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts and on YouTube. Join my tribe at that'stotalmomsense.com and follow me on Instagram at Kanika Chadda Gupta. I'm thrilled to be on this journey with you.